Anyways, I would like to introduce Dale Goodson, who is our speaker. I am just so happy and thrilled that he's with us today. So Dale Goodson is a personal friend. The first time I got to know him was a few years ago when I invited him to the Sutherland Church to give a series of talks. And it was just a tremendous blessing both to hear him, but also to spend time with him. And then a few years ago, about 2 years ago, I invited him to the Oregon conference. At the time, I was the prayer coordinator for the conference. And so they said, well, you can invite a speaker to the conference. And so he was able to give 3 incredible talks about what God had done in his life and other people's lives while being a missionary. So Dale Goodson has worked as a missionary together with his family for many years in the country of Papua New Guinea. So they were living in the jungle amongst the people. They were opening themselves up to all sorts of risks, challenges, and difficulties. And God taught him a lot of things. And it's just amazing to hear his stories. Now, for the last few years, he's been working for Adventist Frontier Missions, which is an Adventist mission organization that goes to unreached territories in the world. So these are missionaries that have to learn the language, that have to learn the culture, that embed themselves amongst the people they're trying to reach. It's a challenge. It's a great challenge. And Dale and a number of others train these missionaries so that they know what they're going out to. He's also, I think, the area representative for Adventist Frontier Missions, so he covers the West Coast, as far as I understand. So I'm just so excited that he's here and that you can be blessed by him. I know that the people that came to the Oregon conference to listen to him were greatly blessed. In fact, we had so many people attending the meetings that we had to turn some people away. So I've been tremendously blessed, and I know you will too. Thank you, Dale, for coming all the way from Goldendale to be together with us, and we look forward to God's blessing today.
Yeah,
Good,
thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. Is the speaker adjusted well? You can hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, good. So I am happy to be here. My name is Dale Goodson. I work for Adventist Frontier Missions. And for a number of years, I worked on the Navajo Reservation in the New Mexico, Utah area. And then I spent about 12 years, just short of 12 years in Papua New Guinea. And, and then, came back. I've been working now with Adventist Frontier Missions for more than 25 years. So put them all together, I've got well over 30 years in mission service, one form or the other. And I just wanted to share one thought I have as I get up to speak. Whenever I stand up in front of a congregation, I want to make sure that several things take place. One, I want to make sure that whatever I'm saying is interesting enough that you won't fall asleep. But if you do fall asleep, I want you to know I've got some Tic Tacs here. You're more than welcome to come up and grab one and just kind of keep your eyes open. I'll just put it right there. You don't have to apologize. Just make yourself at home there. Okay, so we've got I'm going to stand in the shade. No, I won't, because then I'll have a little bird. Okay. So so one thing I want it to be interesting, right? But I want enough to keep you engaged. Number 2, I'd like for there to be a lesson, an important lesson in what I'm saying. So I'm hoping that you don't walk away thinking, wow, that was really entertaining, and then go to sleep at the house and never think about it again. I'd want you to chew on it for a little bit, think about it, and ask yourself, why did he spend my time talking about that, right? So if there's 80, 90, 100 people here today, and you spend 40 minutes with me, how many hours is that, right? 60, 70 hours? I want what I'm saying to be worth 70 hours, right? So I'm hoping that whatever it is I'm saying, you'll learn something from it that's tangible, that's practical, that you can get home and apply it. That's what I'm hoping. So, and I'm wanting what I'm saying also to be educational. I want you to learn something you didn't know before. And so I'm going to try to combine these 3 together. So as I do that, I want to just start with one short scripture reading. It's found in 1 Thessalonians. You've read it before. It's chapter 5. I'm looking at verse 17. It's not very long. Actually, does anybody know that verse by heart? 1 Thessalonians 4:17. Anybody? It's one of the first shortest verses in the Bible. 5:17. 1 Thessalonians 5:17. Pray without ceasing. Okay. In case you haven't memorized that already, can you try it again? Yeah, pray without ceasing. Okay. So if I ask you to remind me of 1 Thessalonians 5:17 when the sermon is over, how many of you think you can remember that? Okay, 1 Thessalonians 5:17 says, pray. Okay. So I'm just curious. Paul was a fascinating fellow, and he was beat up a number of times, thrown in prison a number of times, whipped, stoned, shipwrecked, bitten by a poisonous viper, imprisoned and shipped to Rome to be tried there. Like how many trials can you think of that Paul went through? Quite a few, right? So why would he say something like pray without ceasing?
He was having a hard time.
Yeah, because life as a Christian at that point was what?
Very difficult.
Was difficult. It was difficult. And, for him to say, okay, pray for me without ceasing. And you say, okay, so Paul had a difficult time. But he didn't just say, pray for me without ceasing. What did he say? Pray without ceasing. So how would he just make that blanket statement, pray without ceasing? Why would he say that?
We all need help.
Yeah, he's anticipating that if you are a believer, you're going to need assistance, right? You're going to need assistance. You're not going to do it like Pastor told me this morning. It's not about us, right? We can't do this by ourselves, right? So he said, look, we have to have divine assistance. So I just finished writing 3 books. There's a series of 3. Pastor, did I give you those 3 like a year or 2 ago just to review them?
It was one book, I think.
Okay, 1 book at a time. So the editor said split it up. That's fine. So we've got 3 books. So those books, like from beginning to end, have stories, to me, fascinating stories, and basically every single one of them involves prayer. And yeah, my life for a few years before I went to the mission field, time in the mission field, like lots of time. You'll read stories in there being shot at, being carjacked, with a gun to my head. There's a lot of fascinating stories in there. And answers to prayer repeatedly, because I believe in praying without ceasing. And I believe if it was not for God's hand in my life, I simply would not be here. In fact, there'd be a number of graves probably along the way that could have my name on it. And the same was true with my dad. In fact, if you're a child, my dad, when he was 18 months old, so he's like not very tall, right? He got some terrible, illness. And his parents thought, oh no, our son is going to die. So they took him to the hospital. He was admitted. And then his mom went home, and she came back to check on him, and he wasn't there. And so he's like, okay, so where's my son? And so she couldn't find him. She knew where the bed was. So she asked the nurse, like, I'm just looking for my son. And they said, oh, you mean Dwayne? She said, yeah, my son. Oh, let me introduce you to him. I'll show you where he's at. So she took him down the hallway, down the stairs, into the basement, opened a really cold room, and that's where my dad was. Yeah, he was in the morgue. So at 18 months old, my dad was in the morgue. Now you're probably thinking something doesn't sound normal with this story, right? Because I'm obviously here, and he wasn't married before he was 18 months old. Anyway, so my grandma, bless her heart, she saw her son there, and she was traumatized by that. Like no one wants to see their 18-year-old in the morgue. So she's looking at him, wanting to hold him, and just like, oh no, my son. And she goes, wait a second, he's still breathing. And the nurse said, yeah, it won't be long. So my grandma And my grandpa began a pretty intense prayer vigil, nonstop, just praying and praying and praying. Grandpa was out on a tractor. He had fields to plow and so forth. So grandma, she's like praying. She's like, okay, Grandpa says, every like 2 hours, come talk to me. I'll stop the tractor. We'll pray. So she begins this, prayer vigil with Grandpa, and she goes back and checks on the hospital again. They take her back down to the morgue, and she goes, checks on her son, and she tells the nurse, listen, he's still breathing. Don't leave him down here anymore. It's like, all right. So they took my dad back up to his room, tucked him in bed, and he improved. A few days later, he came back home, and, his grave, he just celebrated his 90th birthday. Wow. And he's not in the grave. There's no marker yet with his name on it. But I will tell you, during his life, he was climbing in the mountains in Oregon, and in the wintertime, ice and snow, and he happened to slip on this landslide. He was trying to cross over. He slipped, and he started falling, all ice, and he got over the edge of a cliff, and he hit his head on a rock and knocked himself out. Yeah. So when he woke up, he was right on the edge. And a friend of his was on top saying, don't move, just don't move. Threw him a rope, he grabbed it, pulled him up. So I can tell you story after story where, in fact, 25, 30 years ago, he went to see a doctor. He had a strange form of neuropathy. And the doctor said, look, anybody we have that's had that form of neuropathy has not lived more than 5 years. So again, like I said, it's 30 years since then, right? Anyway, so there's a number of graves, should have his name on it. But we keep praying for him, and he's 90 years old. Like he should not be here. He had hepatitis 3 times. So the first time the doctor said he's going to die, but he didn't. And as he was recovering, he thought, I have a little energy. He wanted to use the vacuum cleaner, and then he went into relapse. The doctor said, there's no way you'll recover from this. You're worse off than you were the first time. So he eventually turned around, began recovering, and then guess what happened? He had a second relapse, which is third, like he just had, and the doctor said, there's absolutely no way, like he's just so sick. Like I said, my dad's 90, and there's no marker with his grave on it yet. My point is that God does work in the lives of humans, right? We keep praying, and God does answer prayers, right? But can I always say that God prevents death? No, I can't. And we have a long list of martyrs throughout the Dark Ages, literally tens of millions of martyrs during the Dark Ages that prayed, would like to have lived, but did not. Yeah. And their graves mark the fact that they were faithful until death, right? So we have that. So prayer does not mean you're not going to suffer. Prayer does not mean you're not going to die. But we have a number of stories, instances in our lives of God's people that demonstrate that God can and often does step in, right? To preserve life and to enable His work to move forward, right? And during the Dark Ages, again, when tens of millions of Christians were killed for their faith, did the work stop? No. In fact, it continued moving forward and grew. Again, there's tens of millions. So the first few didn't die. They grew in number, and so we had millions and millions, and it just kept on growing. So there is an element where faith, prayer, and death sometimes combine, right? And work is progressing and moving forward in the midst of tragedy. So I'm not here to say that prayer always prevents tragedy, and I can tell you horrible stories where it did not. But I'm not here to do that. What I'd like to do is share a couple of stories with you. One of them is fresh enough that it took place, the answer to prayer took place this week. But the prayer began years ago. And I'd just like to share that, just because it's a cool thing. And I can tell you right now, there's thousands of people rejoicing over this answer to prayer, and they're not just in the United States, they're across the globe. So it's a big enough thing, a lot of people are rejoicing. So here's the deal. I have a friend, And I can't tell you his real name. So I'd like for someone to volunteer and just tell me a name I can use. Can someone just give me a name? A man.
Eduardo.
What is his name?
Eduardo.
Eduardo. Eduardo. Okay. So I was going to put a play on that word. It's going to get harder if you're using Eduardo. All right. So is that your name, by the way?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Can you stand up here just for a second?
Yeah, sure can. You want me to go up there?
Just right here.
Okay.
So Eduardo is a really good friend of mine. And he's been a friend of mine for several years. And he was not raised in the United States. I don't know about you, but my friend Eduardo, he was raised in a European country that is not free. And so as he was growing up, they did have a church in the country. It was a predominant religion that almost everybody belonged to, but they did not have Bibles. So Eduardo, I'm just telling you, this is Eduardo's story. Thank you. So I could just grab this, and I can tell you a lot of children also have Bibles, right? There's a couple of young men there. Do you have Bibles? Yes? With a light blue shirt. Just humor me for a second. Do you have a Bible? Not with you, but you do have one. Yeah. So how old are you?
I'm 15.
15. Can you just stand up for a second? So my friend Eduardo, when he was a young fellow, he didn't have a Bible. And he'd already been through a war, survived the war, had a sniper shoot at him. I can tell you crazy things about my friend Eduardo, right? So when he was around 15, Eduardo had some business that called him to the United States. And so he and a handful of friends and colleagues of his had to come to the U.S. So they came, and for whatever reason, Eduardo was able to take his son, he was the young guy. His dad was able to take him with him. So the boy Eduardo came to the U.S., and while he did, you can sit down now. So as he did, his dad, with all of his other friends from Eduardo land, okay, they come to the U.S., and someone finds out, oh, wow, there's a bunch of fellows from Eduardo land that came to our community. Let's invite them to church. And so they made the announcement, hey, would you all be willing to come to our church? They said, sure, we'll come. So they all came and filled up the pews of the church. Okay, so the pastor, knowing that they're coming, he began looking, can I find a Bible in Eduardo's language? Can I find a Bible? He got a translator, now he has to find a Bible. And he looked, and he eventually found a Bible just in time so he can give it away to one person in this group of people from Eduardo land. So they all show up. He says, hey, listen, I want you to put your name in a hat. So he gets a hat, passes around. They get a piece of paper, write their name on it, put it in the hat, and they do all the collection. The pastor brings it up to the front, mixes all the names up, and he pulls out one name, and whose name is it? Eduardo. So he says, Eduardo, can you please come up? And the young man, he comes up. So he comes up, and he gives him a Bible, and there you go. And so Eduardo, he doesn't know what it is because no one in his church has ever used the Bible before. So he says, oh, okay. And he takes it home. Now, as he's walking down through the congregation, people stop him and say, wait, I'll give you $300 for that. Like, they've never seen the Bible before. These are people from Eduardo land, never seen the Bible before in their entire life. Sees this young kid with the Bible, like, how does he rate? Like, we've never seen one before. They say, well, $300. And he says, no. And he continues walking. He gets to his dad, and his dad says, son, like, you don't know, you're holding gold. Don't ever let anybody else have it. Don't sell it. Don't lose it. Like, just hold on to that. Like, you'll never see another one in your entire life. So he says, okay. And he goes and sits. I'm not stealing it from you, right? I would just illustrate. Okay. So he goes back to his seat, holds the Bible, and like he wants to protect it so no one can touch it. And he eventually takes it back to Eduardo land, and he doesn't know what to do with it. So he stores it. No one's ever used the Bible before, so he stores it. He gets a little older. He says, I wonder what that book says. And he opens it up to Matthew. And he starts reading the genealogy. And he says, oh, it's a genealogy book. And he doesn't read it. It's a genealogy book. He just sets it there. So, oh, must be something that like the priests and stuff would read, right? So he just leaves it like that. And it sits there. And it's not so some years later, he is introduced to the Bible, and he realizes, oh, I should read it. And he begins reading it, and he loves what's in here. And he becomes a Sabbath keeper, becomes a Seventh-day Adventist, goes to, I could tell you like a whole string of miracles all along the way. If I could just have him talking to you, you wouldn't want him to quit. You say, okay, we'll do that for supper, and we'll just continue talking the rest of the afternoon, right? So anyway, so my friend Eduardo, the younger fellow, turns to the older fellow. And so Eduardo becomes a pastor. Again, miracles allowing him to get the training, paying for his transportation, his education, like the Lord taking care of all that. He keeps praying, and God keeps opening the doors. He begins working at Eduardo land. He raised up a church way bigger than this one. He's got more people in his church than there are in the rest, Seventh Adventists in his church than there are in the entire country. Okay, so he continues working. But the problem is they still don't have, it's still hard. Like, how do you get a Bible? So he came to the United States and became a colleague of mine, really good friend of mine. I love the guy. Whenever we get a chance to sit and talk, we talk about missions. We talk about God's stuff, right? We're asking tough questions and challenging each other, and like we have long, long conversations together. And one of the things he told me a couple years ago was like, man, my people still don't have Bibles. And he's working on the internet with a group of people that keeps growing and growing and growing. There's an underground movement there with tens of thousands of people in it. And guess what? They still don't have Bibles. And he said, look, we have to find a way to get Bibles for these people. We have to find a way. So the first big mountain is like we have to find someone to donate some money so we can have a printer print some Bibles. And so he's like, okay, we're going to have to find a donor. And he's thinking, okay, I'm going to talk to a couple people of mine. So we know that he's looking for donors. He hasn't even talked to a donor yet. Somebody calls up and says, I want to be involved in something that really means something. He says, well, would you like to get help with some Bibles for Eduardo land? I said, yeah, how much do they need? And they write a check and make the donation right then and there to cover all that he was asking for. So like he hasn't even talked to people about it yet. So now he's got the money in hand. It's okay, so now I have to find a way to find out the Bible has been in print in the past. Who's got the copyright, right? And where can I find a printer that can get the permission to print it, begin printing it? And how many can I get for the amount of money that I have? Like he was trying to sort that out. And some of the leaders are really, they're actually religious leaders of other denominations. I could tell you it'd be an interesting conversation, but because we're being filmed, I told the pastor I have to cut short some of what I can say in public. But anyway, so we've got some of the leaders of other denominations also in this movement. And some of them don't even have Bibles. In fact, one of them was appealing for a Bible a couple years ago. And my friend is like, okay, let me see what I can do to help you find a Bible. He was looking and looking, trying to find a way. And he eventually found one more Bible. He's like, okay, I got a Bible for you. And he sends it to the fellow. He gets the Bible. He's like, man, I can't believe it. I have a Bible. And then his family found out that he had a Bible. And his dad was determined to remove it and burn it. And he's like, no. And his dad, he came home one day and he looked for his Bible and it's not there. And he literally tears things apart in the house trying to find his Bible. And like moving everything. So he can't find it. And he puts it he makes a prayer request to other people in this movement he's got going there. He's like, man, I got to find my Bible. My Bible is gone. Like I know my dad took it. I know he did. He threatened to burn it. What do I do? I got to find my Bible. So he looks and looks, they're praying, and eventually he found his dad hid it. His dad found a cross on the front and was afraid to burn it. So he decided, I can't burn it, so I must hide it. So he hid it. Well, now this young man found it, not Eduardo, but a friend of his found it. So now what does he do? He hides it. So his dad can't find it. Well, that means he can't read it. So he's hiding it. Then he forgot where he put it. So then he calls, or he sends a note out to his friends again and says, listen, you got to help me, man. I lost it, and I can't find it. He was just paranoid that he'd never seen the Bible again. So everybody began praying, and then he contacts him back. Says, I found it. I'm okay. All the same, that really Bibles, it's a big deal. So they get the donations, and then they get a copyright. They get a hold of the printer. They look at several different countries trying to find a printer that can ship into the country where we're talking about and has a place where they could print the Bible, ship them in there. So they work on that detail. Finally find the printer. They begin printing. They ship the Bibles. They get to the country where they're supposed to be going, and they don't allow them in. So it's a fascinating story. Prayer again begins across the globe. People are praying for these people. And then I got a note yesterday showing them unpacking the Bibles. And so this is you can imagine, literally decades, people not having access to this and just wishing they had access to it. And kids growing up never having access to it, right? And becoming adults, becoming even church leaders and still not having access to it, right? So now they've got some. I won't tell you how many, but there's stacks. There's stacks of them higher than my head. So they're just super, super, super happy to finally have a copy of a Bible. So that's story number one. I don't have a watch with me, so if I go over, you'll have to just tell me, look, you need to be quiet and sit down now, because I don't have a watch. Okay. Anyway, I love these stories where God does stuff like that, and I managed to get stuff in where it belongs. So another story I'd like to tell you is a story that took place in New Guinea. This fellow, his name is Philip. I won't tell you his last name, but I've thought several times I'd love to bring him to the United States and just let him speak. I think he would not have a problem keeping people interested. He was raised in a community that was well known for bandit activity. In fact, when I drove to PNG, one of the places I dreaded to drive was through his community, because they would hold us up. They would purposely wreck cars. They would attack people, chop people with machetes. They were not afraid to hurt people in the effort to rob, and get your blessed man. That's cold. So Philip was raised in this, it's a crime-ridden region, and everybody knew this region for the crime. He grew up, joined the criminal band activity that was taking place, and then he joined the military and learned how to use the big weaponry, machine guns, and then he was sent to war. So he goes, he fights. When he's done, he comes back, and when he comes back, he manages to sneak his machine gun with him. So he takes it back with him. Now he's living in a bandit community, and he has a machine gun, and firearms are highly controlled. About the only people that have them are bandits, and now he has a machine gun and quite a bit of ammunition he managed to sneak. So he's got a machine gun, ammunition, and he hatched out this wonderful plan of going to the airport and robbing one of the banks in there. And he does it. succeeds. They say he got like a $500,000 kina, which is like $150,000 at the time, probably $180,000. And he's successful. He gets out. He gets away. One of the security guards saw him with the machine gun. He's like, no. He runs. And as he runs, he takes his pistol, holds it back behind him, and shoots as he's running, and happens to kill another person, not the bandit. Some other innocent person dies. So there's a law in PNG that says, listen, if you're involved in some bandit activity and anybody gets hurt, you're liable. And so because he was the bandit in this case, even though he did not shoot anybody, he was the bandit, he's charged with murdering. But they have to find him in order to apply the charges. And so he's running free. There's a massive manhunt, and they're all looking for him. The whole country's like, okay, we got to find this guy. And if you listen to him telling a story, he hires witch doctors to give him charms that'll prevent anybody from ever finding him. And so he's very elusive, and they keep trying to find him. They never can. And he's like so happy he's got these charms, working for him. And his wife doesn't hardly ever see him because he's traveling all over the place trying to elude the police officers. But what is she doing? She's praying for him. She's praying for him. She's on her knees, begging God, please help her husband to quit being a bandit and to turn himself in, to quit hurting people, and to give his life to Jesus. Like she knows, like the only way they can have a peaceful family, peaceful community, and peaceful country is if people allow Jesus to change who they are on the inside, right? So she's just praying that God would bless him and help him to change. And while she's doing that, he's threatening people and running around as a bandit, doing witchcraft. And so it's a fascinating story. And eventually, he's hiding. The police are coming in, they're threatening to destroy the entire community. We'll burn all the houses down, we'll completely destroy this place, unless you find this guy and help us, turn him in. And so people in the community go looking for him, and they find him, and they tell him, okay, listen, you're going to ruin the entire community if you don't turn yourself in. So at this point, just to be clear, he's done witchcraft, he's got a machine gun, he's got ammunition, he feels like he can defend himself quite nicely, but he's got TB. And the TB is wearing him down. So while he can claim, okay, the witchcraft is protecting me from getting caught by the police, is not protecting him from dying from TB. And so he hides, continues hiding, and eventually they beg him, like, turn yourself in. And his wife is still praying for him, and he's trying to figure out, what do I do? And in his heart, he feels like, you know what? I've really been an idiot, and I've been running away from God. And he just, in his mind, it's like really subtle. You can see his body dying, shriveling up. And he knows people are looking for him. He feels very alone. And he decides, okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. I'm going to apologize to my wife. So he goes back to his wife, finds her, apologizes for cheating on her. And he contacts his girlfriend and says, listen, this thing we have between each other is off. Like, I'm not going there anymore. Whatever life I have left, I'm going to use it being faithful to my wife. So he apologizes and apologizes to his wife, and then goes back in hiding. And then he says, okay. And he tells his friends, beg him, please, you got to turn yourself in. So he says, okay. He says, but, don't turn in the machine gun or the ammunition. Just you yourself, And he thinks about it, and he prays about it, and he says, God, what do I do? And God tells him, no, you need to turn in the gun too. He says, fine, I'll turn in the gun too. So he got his gun and ammunition. He went in and turned himself into the police. They arrested him, put him in high security prison, and he's locked up there. And then he decides, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going so they took him, brought him into court, and they charged him for murder and robbery and like a long list. And how do you plead? And his lawyer said, plead innocent. Plead innocent, not guilty. And he goes up there, and they said, how do you plead? And he says, I plead guilty. And his lawyer's like, guilty? No, you idiot. Like you're gonna die, because they went ahead and processed the court, and his final sentence was death. Yeah, they gave him the death sentence. And but he was already dying. Like literally, he didn't have much left. He could barely move because he had TB. And so they go to put him in a hospital. They said, no, we're going to put him in the hospital. To put him in the prison, he goes in the hospital, back into prison. He heals up. And then they had some complication, and I don't know what it was, in the politics. And he ended up not being killed. And so now while he's in there, what is he doing? Reading his Bible and praying. He said, listen, God, I just want you to tell me every day what you want me to do. Every day, just tell me what you want me to do. I just want to do that. And he begins witnessing in the prison. He also finds a great controversy. And he devours it. He loves it. And he begins to get it wrapped into his mind, wrapping his mind around how the whole great controversy works, and realizing he has a part to play. The devil's playing in it. God's playing in it. He needs to do something and not just sit there. He says, even though I'm in prison, I can still witness. I can still do something, even if I'm dying. I can still witness. So he begins trying to take his body and asking God, okay, now what do I do? What do you want me to do? How can I use my life to serve you? So he begins witnessing, and he finds a guy there who's already been in prison for years. And his name is Bonnie, not Bonnie. My daughter's name is Bonnie, but his is Bonnie. It's a little bit different. And the legend goes way, way, way back in their tribal history of a massive giant that came, across the ocean, had huge feet. Like we have, not Sasquatch, the guy that walked, made the Great Lakes, Yeah, that's the guy, Paul Bunyan. So he's got this monstrous guy, left these massive footprints. Anyway, Bonnie. So this guy was named after him, and he's in prison. I'm not going to tell you what he was there for. I like to protect the guy. He's ashamed of it, so I'll just leave it at that. So this fellow, Philip, sees him and begins reading the Bible with him, having Bible studies, and Bonnie is convicted that he needs to give his life to God. And he does. He's convicted of the Sabbath. And he says, okay, I'm going to keep the Sabbath. And begins keeping the Sabbath. So I can't control much, but I can control keeping the Sabbath. And they began witnessing. And eventually the time came where Bonnie was going to be discharged from the prison. He's released, right? So he's discharged. Not Philip. Philip's still in prison. But Bonnie, he's released. And as he gets ready to go, Philip goes down and says, Bonnie, I have to stay in prison, but you can go home. I want you to witness for me. Witness for your Jesus. Like, just because you're leaving prison, you're out free again, it's really easy to get sidetracked and forget that you gave your life to God. You can't forget it. Remember you gave your life to God. You can go plant a church. Go plant a church. Go home and plant a church. So he's just really challenging him as he left prison to go home and plant a church. And so Bonnie says, okay, I'll do it, Philip, I'll do it. So he goes home, but now everybody looks at him as a prisoner. Like, you're a corrupt dude. Like, we know what you did before you left. Last time we knew you, you did some evil, despicable act. And so no one wants to talk to him. And so he's like, okay, it's true. I did an evil, despicable act. I can't say I didn't. But I still have a life here, and I need to follow God, right? So he's like trying his best to follow God, but no one wants to listen to him, including his family. Eventually, his wife and then a couple of his kids, they begin listening to him. And pretty soon he's got like a little Bible study group just with his family. And that family is the only Bible group he has for 8 years. And he's like, do I give up now or no? He said, no. I was told to plant a church. He's faithful for 9 years, 10 years, 11 years. And the only people he has listening to him is his immediate family. 11 years, 12 years, 13 years. He's just worshiping by himself, just begging God, God, what do I do today? Like, help me, guide me. Well, like, what do I do today? And God just keeps telling him, just keep being faithful. After 13 years, someone listened to him. Someone listened to him after 13 years. And okay, so he's got one person, and they brought their family. Within a couple weeks, he got several families come. And within a few more weeks, he's got more families. But in like 8 weeks after he started, there's like 100 people worshiping with him. So 13 years, how many people? Just his family. And after 13 years, what? In literally just a few weeks, it goes from just his family to over 100 people. So what I thought was interesting is I went to visit one of our missionaries. And as I was visiting the missionary, he said, oh, we've got this speaker, and we had some programs. We were opening a training center. I was part of that opening. And he asked a visiting fellow to come and speak. And I sat down on the grass like you folks are out there, but we didn't have any nice shade. We just had a few coconut trees up there. And we don't want to sit underneath them because, well, you can figure that out. So we were sitting out there. And the speaker got up and he began speaking, and guess who the speaker was? It was Philip. He had gotten released from prison, and he was determined he was going to serve God. He immediately began working with to make like an orphanage for kids, and then he was like on a preaching circuit, and he was like doing all he possibly could to make up for the evil things he had done, just to make the community a safer place and feed kids. Like he was raising money different places to feed these kids. And he was asked to speak, and he was speaking. So he got up to speak, and I was thinking, wow, this is a fascinating story. And he got to the point where he was talking about Bonnie. And he said, yeah, so I told this guy, Bonnie, look, you got to be faithful. Go out and plant a church. And as he was saying that, I heard somebody in the audience start crying. And I looked over and saw this older fella sitting there, and he was just crying there, crying and crying. He's like sitting all by himself. So, okay, so I got up, went over and sat by him, and he looked at me, and he just continued weeping there by himself. When he was done, he looked at me and says, the reason I was crying is because it was so hard. It was so hard. It was Bonnie. It was so hard. Said it was so hard. All those years, no one listened to me. It was so hard. But he was determined to be faithful. You can imagine it'd be really easy to say, listen, no one's going to listen to me. I'm not going to keep trying because no one listens to me. I was a prisoner. I've got a despicable past. No one's going to listen to me, so why even try? You know what I'm saying? It'd be so easy. He's like, no, he keeps faithful, being faithful, being faithful, being faithful. So a couple months ago, I had to go back to New Guinea. We had a missionary there. Any of you know the Sluggers? I know someone does because they told me, okay, a few of you know. There we go. Okay. So they're a missionary couple living in New Guinea. And they're working with this group of people. AFM, Adventist Frontier Missions, have been working with them for a couple of decades. And it's a fascinating story. We have these leaders, and we have this concept that I teach in training called cultural wholes. Cultural wholes means you're raising a culture, a whole community of people, and they have normal ways of doing business. So if these are my kids right here, I'm just pretending. So if they were my children, how would they normally get food? We'd provide it, right? My wife and I would provide the food. So how would they get medical care? I'm responsible for that, right? I take them to a physician, right, a clinic, and they provide the care. Okay, how do they get their clothes? Okay, we go to a store and get the clothes. Okay, so what happens if there are no more stores? So then I lose my ability to provide clothing. Is that true? Okay. What happens if all the clinics shut down? Okay, I lose access to health care. What happens if the stores shut down, the grocery stores shut down? Okay, the only thing that allows me to perform my role is the fact that we have these other services available. Does that make sense? Okay, so cultural holes are holes that take place when something is removed from the culture. And I can pass down, if Eduardo, is he sleeping?
No.
You have your glasses on. It's hard to tell, man. I'm just asking. Okay, so if can you just stand up for a second? Just because I already bothered you a couple times.
No bothering, not at all.
So let's say that Eduardo is my son, right? Hi, son.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Dad.
So if Eduardo is my son, how do I normally pass down my values to him? How do I pass down my values?
Example.
Okay, I give you 100 points for that. Normally what happens is he watches me. He watches me. I tell him stories, do all kinds of stuff, but he watches me.
Right.
And if I beat my wife, what does he learn?
Most likely, not exactly, but most likely that's what
Yeah, he learns from me. If I yell and scream at my wife, call her ugly names, throw shoes at her, he's learning, right? By example. So I pass my values down to my son. So what would happen if we did that for generations and I learned, okay, I don't have to tell him out with my mouth because he can learn it explicitly simply by watching me, right? So if I learned that, and all my ancestors, we don't talk about it, we simply pass those values down by example. Now what happens if in one generation, the families, the parents or children are separated, the kids all go to school, the parents both go to work, and they hardly have any time to actually do life together? What happens? Okay, but I introduced the concept earlier. What's it called? A cultural whole. Like we just introduced a cultural whole. The thing, like you lose the clinic, you lose the grocery store. Now we're losing the method we use to pass values down. Are you with me? Okay, so you can have lots of cultural holes. Do we have them in America? Believe me, we have lots of cultural holes in America. Okay, thank you, Eduardo. Yeah. So we had this place where Bonnie comes from, where he's trying to plant a church. They had a number of cultural holes because the kids are being ushered off to school, but when they leave school, they don't go in the workplace and find a job. Where do they go? They go back to the village. So they get an education, go back to the village. But during what time frame do they normally get these skill sets required to live life as adults? It's during the ages, the years when they were normally in school. So they just lost that. We have a cultural hole. We just created a cultural hole. Education created like a massive cultural hole. Okay, so there's like a whole handful of other pieces to this. I won't go into all the details, but they end up with this culture really struggling. Kids get older, they don't have the skill sets that most people have just to survive out there. Build a house, make a canoe, you can make a long list. And I talked to some adults there, and like to buy something requires a massive amount of effort because you can't just, like I could just go to the market and sell it or sell it on Amazon, like go get a job. I can get cash that way. They don't have jobs. They can't go and just get cash with a job. They would have to catch fish, dry it, and take it to sell it. Who's gonna buy it? Everybody around them has fish, right? So who are you gonna sell it to? And so supply and demand. If everybody has it, how does the price go? It goes down. So, and in order to get to someplace where he can sell it, is going to cost him everything he would normally get from selling like a whole bunch of fish. So like, it really is an effort. I talked to some adults there. In fact, one of Bonnie's sons, I asked him, so they had a spoon and a bowl, and they let me borrow it, so I used it, I returned it, and I discovered it's the only spoon and bowl the entire family owns. The only spoon and bowl the entire family owns. I began asking around, like they make canoes, they build houses, like everything is done with machetes, axes, like trying to figure out like fishing nets, trying to figure out like adults, like do you have an axe? A man, like a male adult, do you have an axe? The answer is no. No, like Okay, do you have a machete? Like if the wife doesn't even have a cooking pot, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a challenge just trying to figure out, okay, what do they have? And one of the challenges, they go to school because they want to find access somehow to getting some of this stuff, right? So they go to school. When school is over, where do they go? They go back. And you end up with a generation that's worse off than their parents. Are you with me? Yeah. Okay. So a lot of times missionaries don't see that. You can move into a community and not realize all these cultural holes are in place. And so I was saying, listen, as we introduce Christianity, we often create more cultural holes because you can't do this, you can't do that. So what do? Like how do you, what does practical Christianity look like in these contexts? And I can tell you, we need to have a serious discussion on that very thing in the U.S. I'll leave it like that. So, okay, so we have this, this community, and I was telling Jason, we need to find a way to fill these cultural holes. I've got experience doing that in the past. Jason had not done that yet. He hasn't been there that long. He's just getting organized and starting working, moving forward there. But when I talked to him about it, he's like, "I'm happy to do it. I've never done it. Could you just show me? Just show me. I want to see what it looks like." I said, "Sure." So I was in the country. I set aside several days just to work with him. We'd talk about it, plan it, and then we would have an event. And he said he would like 3 days. We can do 3 days. And, or maybe I suggested 3 days first. I don't remember. But we had 3 days. I said, where? He said, I would like to do it in Uladu. Uladu is Bonnie's village. So just so you know, Bonnie's got this church group, and the community begins hassling them. And so it goes from 100, and then it drops down, and then it starts getting stronger again, But the community says, you can't. He says, I want to build a church here in my community. They said, no, you can't build a church in this community. We don't want you here. He's like, okay. So he says, okay, where are we going to meet then? Someone suggests, well, there's an island over there, out there in the middle of the swamp. We just go out there and we'll worship on the island. So they get in their canoes, they paddle out there to this deserted island, and they have worship on the island. And they're faithful out there, and they have such a good reputation in the community that people begin realizing these Christians are good. They're good people. They're really good people, very nice people. Oh, okay. You can have a little space here in the community, build your church. So he's okay. But at this time, Bonnie's had a stroke. He's getting older. He's having a hard time. So they say, okay, he's got all of the people that are following him. They help him put together his little church. Bonnie's there. And they're worshiping in the church. And we say, listen, is it all right if we have this little program at your church? He says, yeah, come. The youth will be happy to come. So, and I tell Jason Sliger, I don't know how many people would come, but maybe if we had 10 or 15, it would be a good group. He's like, yeah, well, you may have more than that. We don't know, but good people will come from maybe a few other communities. They'll maybe come, so we could have more than that. And I'm thinking, well, if we had 40 would be maxing out. It'd be hard to do this event with more than 40 because a lot of interactive stuff. He said, okay. So the message goes to the community, is it okay if we have this little meeting in this small, half-built church? And they said, no. You're doing it for young people. We want you to have it in the Monoganama. It's a big, we don't have one here in the States. It's a big roof, but no walls. And as youth people go in there to get fresh wind, they have meetings, public meetings and stuff in the Monoganama. So they said, we're going to have it in the Monoganama, and you have to allow all the youth people, all the young people in the community that want to come, you have to let them all come. So that's fine. Okay, if that's the conditions, let them come. So we showed up, and 125 men showed up. And so we spent 3 days together. And what I want to tell you, we are begging God to bless the meetings, to create interest, to help us to fill this hole, because we're not Papua New Guineans, we're outsiders, but we have done significant culture study, trying to understand culture holes and how to fill them. So rather than going through, like, I could spend like a couple of hours discussing that. I'm trying to wind this sermon up. So in doing so, I want to mention, because these are people who hunt, fish, canoe, they're always busy. When they showed up for the meeting, I couldn't have them sit like you're sitting for hours. They're not used to that. So we took a lot of the things we wanted to teach, and we boiled them down to interactive events. So they had to do interactive events, and we would discuss the event. Have another interactive event and discuss the event. For instance, we had a pole here, a string on the ground, and a string over here, and a bucket here, and a bucket there, and we had a ball. I brought this with me from town, like a beach ball, and we had strings. And they had to figure out how to pick that ball up. 2 different people on this side, 2 different people on that side. You can only hold one string at a time. Figure out a way to very gently coordinate together to pick up the ball off of one bucket. We had the buckets upside down. They'd have to roll across the strings till it got to the other bucket. They'd have to set it down without dropping it, without touching it. And so usually it would fall over a handful of times, right? So it would fall over, and then they had to pick it up and start over. And so after they did that, they mastered it. We had a discussion about marriage. And one string represents the husband, and one string represents the wife. And what are the things that could cause imbalance? So, well, strength could cause imbalance. The guy is stronger, so what does he do with his wife? Is it possible that you could have an unbalanced strength and have it destroy the marriage? Yeah. Yes. Okay. What else could cause unbalance? Authority. Okay. How about workloads? Yeah. Okay. So we had this big discussion, and we had all of these guys pitching in and talking about it, and trying to think. Okay, wait a second. What does that do? What does it do to a man's authority in the marriage? And so we wrestle with that. Like, does that mean a man does not have authority in the marriage? Or does it mean he can't use his authority to abuse his wife? Does that mean that his wife needs to have some space where she can have some sense of control, right? Like, we wrestle with that. So they had this big discussion. So the fact that we start off with an activity, everybody's excited, they're all involved, and then time for the discussion, they're all talking, they're all interested in what they're doing, so we had this big discussion. So that's what the training went through. We just had these back and forth, and we also made a long list of the areas where the big cultural hole, and all the stuff that was in there. They say, okay, the kids don't have the skill sets. We had to work with the elders in the community, finding a way to pass these skill sets on. Long story short, we were begging God for help during the entire thing. Did want to help us understand the problem, help the community be willing to accept us into the community, to guide all the events that took place in the community. And when it was halfway through the first day, one of there's an older fellow showed up. He showed up, and he stood up in the middle of this meeting. He stopped the meeting. He says, "I just want you to know, no one's ever done this before, ever. And we didn't want you to stop it." Wow. He said, we didn't want you to stop it. And I said, no one's ever done it. And it's like a huge need, and again, using the terms we're using, a massive hole. And he said, no one's addressed it before since the time he was little. And he said, we can't believe you're doing this. And so he just begged us to continue. The next day, same comments. They were going back in the village at night, spreading communication everywhere, saying, listen, this is the crazy thing. Like, who would imagine anybody would do this to help us out? And just how important it was, and make sure you come tomorrow. So we had this huge group the next day. And third day, again, a huge group. And then I went back to our missionaries village, Kewa, and they had a meeting and a meal the next day. Guys from Bonnie's village showed up to pass on Bonnie's gratitude again. But here's another thing they said. They said they want a handbook so they can train all of their 30-something or 40-something, I guess it's 40-something villages in their tribal group. They want all the villages to get the same training. Wow. So we want a handbook that all of us can use, We want you to come back and train us to use that handbook so every young man in the entire tribe can get what you guys provided for us, over the last 3 days. And then another guy stood up. He said, no, we want that. The girls need the same thing. We want you to do the same program, but for the girls. And then that guy stood up and said, listen, married couples need the same help. Like, could you do the same thing for married couples? And, I walked away thinking how easy it is. And this is the challenge for missionaries, pastors, Bible workers. It's easy for us to stand up and start preaching, giving doctrinal presentations, Bible studies, but never really impact the cultural lives of people and the practical challenges that they face, right? And it's really easy for pastors, and the higher you go up in a church administrators, to lose connection with the what they call grass, just the way down there. There's another term in New Guinea. Anyway, the dirt level guys, right? It's really, I don't mean that in a derogatory form. When I was there, I had dirt all over me. We had communion. We didn't wear shoes. We actually washed each other's feet. Like we'd often walk through swamp, up to our knees or beyond to get to the, anyway, you got the idea. So here we wash our feet before we go to communion. No, there we went to communion to have our feet washed. But anyway, the grassroots level people there. So it's easy to lose connection with him and not really know things that they're struggling with, not to have the slightest idea. And when Eduardo gets bigger like me, it's really easy for there to be a massive generational separation between Eduardo and the next youngest generation growing up. Massive separation, and he has no idea what are the cultural holes the next generation is struggling with. They can struggle with issues he doesn't have the slightest idea what they are. He doesn't. And it's really easy for us to stand up, give a doctrinal presentation, and not realize we've covered a lot of really important topics, but we haven't covered all the topics the younger people are desperate for answers for. We haven't done that. We haven't showed them how to practically deal with all of the concerns that they're wrestling with. And missionaries struggle with the same thing. And so we were just trying to figure out how can we wrap our minds around the more practical side of these younger people and show them not just how to become church members when they get older, but how to live as Christians and apply biblical teaching and all of their cultural context as they get older and help lead the next generation forward. And that is what my message is for you. I believe that we need to do that. I believe that's what Christianity is. When Christ said, go and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and teaching them to what? Observe all things I've commanded you. Observe it like we observe Thanksgiving, we observe Christmas, like we actually practice those, right? We're going to take his teachings, put them into practice. I believe the world needs people to know how to put them into practice. And it's easy for you to say, look, I have no idea what I'm doing. And what I want you to know is that my friend Eduardo had no idea what he was doing when he put together this massive order and tried to find a way to get into a closed country. But the books are there. The books are there. Not because he didn't know what he was doing, but because God did know what he was doing, right? And again, we've got massive cultural hole-filling challenges in New Guinea and countries across the globe. And it's really easy for missionaries to say, look, I really don't know what I'm doing. But once again, I believe God does know, and he can open the doors, and he can show us this is how you address this, and guide us to that. And it's my prayer to all of us as we leave here today, go wherever it is that we're going, we're going to go with the knowledge that God has the capacity to open those doors and to give us the wisdom and the skill and help us move forward. What he needs is for us to be willing to just do that. Look up like my friend did. Okay, Lord, now what? And just give God an opportunity to speak to us, to speak through us, and just keep the work moving forward. It makes sense? May the Lord be with all of you. I probably used up my 40 minutes, right? Okay, I'll stop now. Happy Sabbath to all of you. Can we have a short word of prayer? Yes. Lord God, I just like to say thank you. I know you're a God of love and mercy. You look down at all of us. You smile. We're your children. You care deeply about us. You also care deeply about the billions of people on the globe that don't have access to the gospel yet. And Lord, you know how long that line would be if they all lined up to hear the gospel. It'd be long enough to go from here to the moon and back 3 times. We don't really understand how big that number is, Lord. We also don't really understand how many Christians are frustrated and struggling because they don't really know how Christianity works yet. I'd like to ask that you give us the wisdom and discernment that we need to appropriately represent your kingdom to the world that we live on, in the communities that we shop in and work in and the roads we drive on. That you guide us, Lord God, that we can be a voice for Jesus here and hands for Jesus here, and that we keep that connection with you open all the time. You can speak to us. We'd learn to listen very carefully, Lord, and to very intensely push forward, even if we can't see what's directly in front of us. We just continue pushing, trusting you lead and guide us for Jesus' sake.